Welcome to the 10 Count Boxing Podcast. My name is Cyril Lahum. Let's talk boxing. We are all still trying to digest the news that came out earlier this week. Boxing South Africa CEO Tsolofelo Lechaka has quit from his post with a year left on his contract. I don't know if there are any fans out there who saw this coming, but I certainly didn't. And we may never find out from the man himself why he quit, so I'm not going to try and speculate, but what we need to figure out is what this means for local boxing. I was one of the people who felt Lechaka was doing a decent job if you consider where the sport was before he got the job. There were so many stories of boxers not getting paid what they had earned back then that honestly it was disheartening. I certainly hope that whoever is appointed CEO of BSA next will build on what Lechaka achieved. I understand Cindy Nkomo has been appointed the acting CEO. Her first challenge, along with the board, will be to guide the sport back into competition after COVID-19 has halted all tournaments. Moving along now, I had a chat with promoter Joyce Kungwane from TLB Promotions, and we spoke about her journey into boxing. She seems to be intent on putting on decent shows, and that can only be a good thing.
Okay, naturally, I'm a sports person, even though I never competed professionally. And as for boxing, the person who actually gave me or who motivated me into boxing mostly is Litlahono Ndwaba, who's my friend and as well as the person that I'm working with in TLB Promotions.
Boxing is a male-dominated sport, so how has she been able to navigate through all of this?
Well, fortunately for me, I can say I have not experienced so much of pressure from my male counterparts, but obviously here and there you'll have one or two people who will not give you support because you are a woman. But so far I've been having an easy path, and I really appreciate the support that I'm getting from most of the male promoters, especially from Gauteng and outside Gauteng.
I also wanted to find out what the plans for TLB are, as we all saw earlier this year, there was a tournament organized, but had to be cancelled at the last minute due to COVID-19. The tournament would have seen former two-weight world champion Heki Butler make his return to the ring after not having fought in 2019. Big punching Tulani Mbenge was also scheduled to appear on the show.
To be honest, it was just so frustrating and hurting, but it is what it is. Obviously, nobody saw the COVID coming and disrupting everything. But well, it's just a disappointment that we had to face. And it was a great tournament. We were looking forward to it. Everybody was excited, I guess. But then, obviously, financially as well, it crippled us. But I'm just glad that the boxers that were in the bill benefited from the relief fund that was issued or given by National Department of Sports and Recreation. As for ourselves, we're still licking the wounds, but we're looking forward to the reopening of boxing, and we will definitely put the tournament again.
Moving on, if you remember last week I spoke to trainer Sean Smith, and he spoke about wanting a Thabiso Mchunu Ilunga Makabu rematch sometime down the line. This week I asked Makabu's trainer, Damien Durandt, about it, and this is what he said.
Obviously Sean's got his plan as to what he wants to accomplish with Thabiso, and I think Thabiso's, finally back on a good road. Whether his performance against Lebedev was of good value or not is one to question, because Lebedev had just come out of retirement, so I think there's still tests and some questions to be answered regarding Thabiso's quality still. Do I make anything of the fight? Not really, because there's no value in that fight for me. I believe there's bigger fights for junior unifications, defense of his world title, or unifications in the division. So for me, I don't make anything out of a Thabiso Makabu 2 at this current time. If it's something that comes up and has to be addressed, then we'll address it. But for now, I just see a bigger future for Junior than a rematch with Thabiso. A fight I'd love to see Makabu in. I'd love to see him fight the winner of Bradis versus Dotikos. I think a huge unification fight, but of the winner of that would really stem down to who's the man in the cruiserweight division. So that's the fight I would really like to see. Whether it's Dotikos or Bradis, they would both be great fights. I think for me, Bradis being the better technical fighter, but Dotikos being the dangerous puncher. So I think Junior showed his ability to mix with very good technical fighters as well as big punchers. So I think it'll probably be the best fight that could happen in the cruiserweight division at this current time.
I also spoke to Durandt about his other fighters. Emani Kalombo, who has knocked out all his opponents so far, was one of the names that came up.
He's worth up until African level. I'd really like to test him at international level. The plan was to fight overseas, but obviously that didn't happen due to the lockdown. We were in negotiations. We had actually 3 different options on fights overseas, and I wanted to take him abroad because I think he's ready to start traveling. And also, I don't want him to get to a point where it's late in his career and that's the first time he travels. I want to introduce the traveling aspect earlier in his career so he starts to feel comfortable. So for me, I definitely think it's a international test is where he's at. At the moment, obviously, negotiations in world boxing is a bit quiet now, and they're trying to do local matchups in the UK and the US, and to try and get a fight in the US at the moment is very difficult, as well as the UK, just because of the restrictions with traveling and the protocols that need to be followed with COVID-19. So maybe there's a possibility he'll have another fight in South Africa, and then his next fight will be overseas. Right now, nothing solid in the pipeline, but I'd like to try and work on something overseas for now and test him with an international opponent.
Veteran Jackson Chauke's name also came up.
He's had success overseas. In his last fight, he beat the WBC international champion, a hot prospect from Russia, and he performed extremely well. I would really like to see Chauke fight for a legitimate world title, or possibly capture a world title before he walks away from the sport. That's definitely something I think he's capable of doing. I think Jackson is the kind of guy that rises up to the occasion depending on who you put in front of him. I think he's the better the level of opposition, the better he'll perform. So if you put an average Joe in front of him, he's going to give you a good performance, but not the greatest. I think the better you put him in with, I think the better he tends to show his skill set. So I'd definitely like to see him challenge for a world title before he retires from the sport, or even win a world title and make some good money in the sport. Then I know I've really accomplished a lot when it comes to Jackson.
We also spoke about Atenkosi Dumezweni, who the trainer believes big things are to be expected from him, despite the junior bantamweight coming off a loss.
So Dumezweni suffered a loss in his last fight. He lost his WBC silver title against Martinez, but just to give everyone a bit of clarity as to the quality of Dumezweni, even though he suffered a TKO loss, on BoxRec he's still rated. He's rated as the number 1 South African junior bantamweight. So it shows, even though he suffered a loss, he's still seen as the boss in the junior bantamweight division. And I think for now he needs a good win just to come back. And I'd like to see a local tear-up with him and Sakibo or Buthelezi, and then another international fight, and we take it from there. For now, obviously boxing's a bit quiet, so the clarity on plans aren't too great, but I definitely want to see just a good win to get back on the winning streak, and a local mix-up. I think a tear-up between him and Buthelezi would have the fans interested, or him and Sakibo. They all shouting that they're the number 1, but I think the stats speak for themselves with a guy that's only 14 fights, and he's had less fights than both of them, and he's the number one junior bantamweight on BoxRec. I think it says a lot, and I think people underrate the man that was in front of him in Martinez. I mean, Martinez was a monster. Do I think if there's a rematch, Dumezweni would beat him? Definitely. I think we went into a fight a bit blindfolded. It was very difficult to get any footage on him. We had seen one of his amateur fights, and that's all we could really get of him. So it was extremely difficult to prepare for him, and I think it just made the job a lot harder. Knowing what he's about now, I definitely think Dumezweni could outclass him and outpoint him.
Another one of Durant's charges is Brandon Thysse. He's scheduled to fight Boyd Allen in the Super 4 final whenever fighters get back in the ring, and the trainer is very confident.
So Brandon's due to fight Boyd Allen. That's definitely confirmed. When that will happen, I'm not sure. I think Brandon's grown dramatically since the first fight against Boyd Allen, and I think he showed his credibility against Rourke. I think that, like I've said, has been his coming out performance. He's really adapted to the way we train, the way we think, the way we do everything, and I think I'm expecting a better performance from Brandon than he did against Rourke. So I expect Brandon to beat Boyd quite comfortably. To be honest, I wouldn't expect less than from Brandon to knock out Boyd. That's just my opinion, and I'm confident about it, and I know that my man's got the skill set to knock out Boyd. He's just had the better growth since the first fight, and you can see that it's evident. Sure, Boyd Allen's going to be tricky, and he's going to bring a tough fight, but I just believe that Brandon has grown a lot more than Boyd has since the first fight, and the first fight was extremely close.
Well, that is all we have for this episode. Please let me know in the comment section who you would like to hear from and what you think of the show. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Cyril Tsepo, Facebook Cyril Tsepo Lehung, or the Toe to Toe Facebook page. I'm also on Instagram as Lehung Cyril Tsepo. Until the next episode, stay safe.